7 o'clock, Monday, July 15th, 2019. To call the regular meeting of the Waverly City Council to order. Roll call, please.
Bergen.
Here I am.
Drinkow.
Here.
Hankis.
Here.
McKenzie.
Here.
Rothy. Here. Scher.
And I also am here.
Wallenstein. Here.
I don't know if that's the type of meeting it's going to be or not, but we'll get through it. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Any questions? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Agenda as presented is approved. Approval of minutes for June 24th, 2019. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of the June 24th, 2019 study session meeting minutes as written.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Council discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
June 24th, 2019 study session minutes are approved. Public hearing. This is the date, time, and place for a public hearing on Ordinance 1063, an ordinance providing for rezoning of property owned by Wavetown Properties located at 1316 4th Street Southwest from R1 Single Family Residential to C2 Commercial. Did we receive any written or oral comments, Carla?
No, sir, Your Honor.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience? I'll open the public hearing. Anyone in the audience here to speak on this proposal? Hearing none, I close the public hearing. Entertain the motion from the council.
I'll move approval of ordinance 1063 as read by the mayor.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. This is second read of ordinance 1063, property located at 1316 4th Street Southwest. Council discussion.
I wrote down my objections to this, and I want to read them to the council. I normally don't like doing this because it seems so canned, but I wanted to make sure that I was clear about what my problem is or what my concerns are with this ordinance. My primary concern is how this rezoning will affect current homeowners, not only in this neighborhood, but also in other transitional neighborhoods. I want to put yourselves in the shoes of a prospective buyer looking for a house for your family. You want to make sure that if you buy a house, whether it be in Impala or Hickory Heights or this group of homes along the golf course, that you're going to be protected from someone building a dental office or a bar or a restaurant next door. Why? Well, first, because it would be an annoyance, but it would also reduce the market value of your property, and it certainly makes it more difficult to sell. And without the assurance that the lot next to yours will not end up having a commercial development on it, one, you will not buy the house, and two, if you already own it, there's no incentive for you to put money into maintaining or improving it. Without the protection of zoning, such properties will likely sell at rock-bottom prices to a speculator who will use it as rental property until it can be rezoned someday in the future as commercial property, and the cycle begins again. This kind of creeping decay is already taking place in several of our transitional neighborhoods. I've argued for years that transitional neighborhoods like this one along the golf course are especially vulnerable to decay, and we should be taking special care to preserve their livability, marketability, and value, not stressing them even more by limiting their zoning protection. I am certain that the owner of this lot knew how it was zoned before it was purchased, and the owner is free to use it any way that's permitted in R1 district. They can tear the house down, put up a new house, refurbish the house, whatever they want to do. That's certainly their right. And remember, even though this particular owner may have no development plans for the lot at this time, once the lot's rezoned, any future owner is not so constrained. I would frankly be less concerned about this rezoning request if the city's zoning code required that the impact of commercial activities on nearby residential neighbors be minimized by requiring adequate buffering. Section 100.19.04 of the zoning code does require screening if there is a parking lot adjacent to a residential lot, but this screening requirement is minimal. And if there is no parking lot adjacent to the lot, my reading of the code, and I looked through it pretty extensively, does not show any kind of screening requirement whatsoever. The minimal requirement that is required if there's a parking lot is for the screening requirement. I was told by Jason Passmore many years ago, and those of you who remember Jason was whatever the title was, the code enforcement officer at the city, told me that the city considered a simple grass strip to be in compliance with the screening requirement. In 2009, I appeared before the City Council and proposed that the zoning code be amended to require adequate buffering to protect homeowners when adjacent property is rezoned for commercial use. However, the code still has no screening requirement, but relies entirely on the goodwill of the commercial developer to properly separate itself from its residential neighbors. And I noted that in the minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting where this rezoning was recommended to be approved, there were some comments about how the buffering would be accomplished and how, what effect that this would have on the remaining residential lots. I would ask you to reread that if you haven't. Without a more compelling reason to have this property rezoned, and without a zoning code requirement with teeth in it for proper buffering, I am very hesitant to vote in favor of this ordinance.
Okay, any other council comments, discussion?
So, Rod, what would you suggest would be adequate buffering between residential and commercial? What seems satisfactory to do there?
I think that it needs to be, I'm not an expert on this, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, but I think it needs to be something that would shield the residential property from the noise, light, and visual effects of a commercial property. So a fence, a hedge, a row of trees, something that would mask the effects or reduce the effects of having a commercial property right next to your home.
Yeah.
And I think all of you can imagine, what would happen if somebody decided they wanted to put any kind of commercial property. I don't want to pick on dentists, but it's the first thing that came to my mind because I just came from a dentist when I wrote this up. But a dental office next to your house, and someone bought a property and said, I think I want to put a dental office there. I'm going to go to the city council and ask that it be rezoned so I can put in a dental office. Well, certainly it's going to have an impact on your house because your house is not going to be as valuable and it's not going to be as marketable, and you're not going to have a full enjoyment of that property if you have a commercial property next to it. And if the council in its wisdom decides that that is an appropriate place to have a commercial enterprise, that's fine, but let's make sure that we have done everything that we can to keep the impact of having that rezoning impacted on the remaining residential properties.
So what actually is the effect of property values next door to a dental office, let's say, that's open between 8 and 5 and a dilapidated house, which is what's there now?
There's a dilapidated house there now, but part of the reason the house is dilapidated is because it was right next to a commercially zoned property.
How do you know that?
It is. I mean, it's right next to a commercially zoned property.
But that's not the reason for it being dilapidated.
No, it may not be. Maybe it may not be. But if you're going to use that argument, you're really just bootstrapping.
I'm just curious, what is the actual, do you know?
All I know is that, I don't know, no. We'd have to do some visiting with real estate experts to see if there was an impact on having commercial property located next to your property. I think a lot of it would depend on what the commercial operation was, its hours of operation, and what kind of screening there was, frankly.
I guess my thought on it is I'm not sure how much of an impact at this location. I understand what you're saying if we were to suddenly create a new commercial zone next to some R1 housing and have that, but at this location, all those houses on 4th Street are right across from Hy-Vee and McDonald's and the car wash there. So I would think that any impact of light and noise is already factored into the cost of the housing there. And in fact, there's potential if the intersection gets moved to the lighted intersection there by the car wash and Super 8, and they close the north end of that those houses are now, more isolated, and so a little bit more, less heavy traffic potential than if cars were coming from the north and going past them into a business. Cars wouldn't necessarily come in and go to the north to go past their houses. But in general, I don't see how this is going to have a negative impact on those homes that are already there.
I agree with you in principle, Rod, too. I mean, I don't like to see this, but this is such a peculiar set of zoning combinations anyway, and I think I read somewhere in the materials that even in the comprehensive land use plan, which normally tries to not take sort of these individual kinds of things into consideration when thinking into the future, they did, though, I think, in the last comprehensive land use plan, decide just because those single-family residences were there that they'd go ahead and keep those zoned as R1, whereas everything around it is commercial or mixed use or agricultural. I mean, so it almost looks like that strip of houses is the anomaly, as is the church perhaps too. And so, you wonder, I mean, I don't know, so it just looks a little bit different than your normal infringement. I think when you were arguing buffering in front of your house there years ago, to me that was a very different situation, even though there's commercial all along Braemar there, but it was much more residential on the backside. I mean, it felt more residential before, what was it that was put in there, Hardee's or something like that? Yeah.
Quick Star, actually.
Or Quick Star, okay, yeah.
No, it's a family video.
70s.
No. It was Quick Star wanted to have the property rezoned so they could move their station
Okay, yeah.
across the street. But okay, well, I suspect that I'm probably going to be the lone vote on this, and I came into this meeting understanding that. But at some point, I need to stand for principle.
Sure.
And I do not want to make the decision that I believe that these residential lots are not worth keeping as residential lots. And the people that purchase these lots as residential lots with the full intention of living there and enjoying the lots should not enjoy our protection and keeping the property that was zoned residential as residential.
Have we heard from any of those neighbors?
I mean, I would just point out that the property immediately north of this property is a rental property already.
Which I think, to a certain extent, verifies my argument that as you move north and you start rezoning property as commercial, that kind of has a domino effect all the way to the end of the street. And it might take decades, but...
Also, if you look at the property at the north end of that, that is a property that's owned by Grace Baptist Church. So that's not a resident, it's not someone living in there, near as I can tell. It was the people who lived there donated the building to the church, like in an estate, so.
Well, there used to be a preschool in that, so there used to be commercial in that street way back when.
If I
But
could maybe just ask a couple. I certainly understand Rod's concern, and it's a valid one. I thought that there was action taken by the council to, for lack of a better term, beef up some of the requirements to buffer between residential, commercial, those type of things.
I can speak to that. I'm the new zoning administrator here. My name's Isaac Beasley.
Might as well fire him up right now.
I wanted to get
Right in the mic,
So I can address a little bit to the screening worries. We do have code. It is section 100.4.13, specifically point 2A, and it addresses screening requirements for non-residential uses, abutting residential uses. It would require a screening, whether it be a 6-foot opaque fence or whether it be a green barrier. The green barrier, it has to be at least 6 feet tall and 75%, opaque year-round. So there are some screening requirements that if they chose to develop that lot, that they would have to adhere to. So,
Thinking there were some vertical requirements that were.
yep. It has to screen at least 6 feet and at least.
What was that reference
Yeah, can
again?
you give the site for that again?
Yeah, absolutely. It's section 100.4.13, and then specifically in that section, it's point 2A.
Okay. Yeah, that's been added since this is from 2009, so
Okay.
obviously my entreaty of the council at that time provided some fruit to me. Did something.
Yeah, that was 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I was still liaison, and you might have still been on
Yeah.
P&Z at that time.
I think so.
Well, I really think that Rod's concern is legitimate. I'm glad you raised it. It does make me wonder, and I'm going to show my ignorance here because I have never been on planning and zoning, but how do you get from residential to commercial if you want to have both? I mean, you'd have to have a DMZ on there or something. I don't know. How do you...
Right.
I mean, really.
So how do you transition?
Is there? I'm not trying to be funny, guys.
Well, you'd have to have adequate buffering.
Yeah,
It's
but
more the R1 to this commercial as opposed to usually we have an R2 or an R4 that are next to.
Yeah.
yeah, right. Yeah,
It's a more gradual transition.
And an R4 is actually a transitional zoning area anyway, that is a transition between commercial and residential that permits some commercial development.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, to me, this again looks like, I'm kind of repeating what I said before, but, in a way, that grouping of 8 lots as R1 almost looks like a, comprehensive plan spot zoning or something,
Well, at one time, the comprehensive plan showed that whole row of houses as being rezoned to commercial. There was the thinking that as Waverly expanded, that those would be slowly bought up.
But somehow they got back to R1
Yeah.
again, which is interesting. I think it was probably just
Well, I don't think it was ever rezoned
to commercial,
to
yeah.
commercial. It was just the idea that that whole row could very easily end up as commercial at some point in time, so.
Yeah.
Okay,
Second technical question was, if it is zoned to C2, what oversight do we have to control what is placed there and how they buffer it, that type of thing? Would they have to submit their building plan for review? Would that ever come back to us at the
Falls within
council?
C2 and it's acceptable in C2, how much oversight do we have?
When they build a structure on it, they would be required to submit a site plan, in which case it would go through our department and most likely go through planning and zoning, the way I understand the code.
So we would have some influence on
Correct.
what
Yep.
was.
And that would be the place where we would enforce the screening requirements and those types of requirements.
Thank you.
okay. Any other discussion? On ordinance 1063, located at 1316 4th Street Southwest. Roll call vote, please.
Bergen.
Yes.
Drinkow.
No.
Kangas.
Yes?
McKenzie.
Yes.
Rafi.
Yes.
Sheriff.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Second reading of ordinance 1063, an ordinance providing for rezoning of property at 1316 4th Street Southwest, approved 6-1. This is the date, time, and place for a public hearing on ordinance 1064, an ordinance providing for rezoning of 34.62 acres owned by Hannibal Farms LLC, located east of 39th Street Northeast and north of Highway 3, from A1 agricultural to M1 light industrial. We have any written or comments?
We do not, Your Honor.
Open public hearing. Anyone here who wishes to speak to this rezoning request? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Entertain a motion.
I'll move the approval of the second reading of ordinance 1064, an ordinance providing for rezoning of 34.62 acres of property owned by Hannibal Farms LLC, located east of 39th Street Northeast and north of Highway 3, from A1 agricultural to M1 light industrial.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Council discussion.
I'm assuming we have city utilities out to this area that if it was developed, there'd be a relatively easy hookup.
Close. Last meeting, we approved to start the process of taking sewer out at the corner of the property, so there would be a storm, like a sewer main. Water is right across the street. Trying to think electrical. Trying to think where it's at, Mike.
Pretty close by.
Yeah, I mean, they are adjacent to where it would be developable. That's the whole point, was bringing the sewer line out there.
Waverly utilities zone, so.
I believe it's Waverly Utilities, yes.
I guess I've been a proponent of trying to grow the community to the east, so I think this is a great move, and applaud the ask, I guess, to maybe help spur some activity out there, especially with the Parkway very close to being open.
Any other council discussion?
And this property is just within city limits, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Roll call vote, please.
Drinkow.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Rafi.
Yes.
Sheriff.
Yes.
Holstein.
Yes.
Bergen.
Yes.
Ordinance 1064, rezoning 34.62 acres from A1 to M1 light industrial is approved 7-0. Public comments. Time for anyone here that has an item that's not on the agenda they would like to speak to. We'll move on to the consent calendar. Following items will be acted upon by a single vote or motion and discussed without discussion unless someone from the council or public requests that an item be considered separately. Pay request from AHTS Architects for the Waverly Senior Housing 420 building. Project for the amount of $3,008.95 to be paid by Waverly Senior Housing. Pay request from Stahey Construction Incorporated for the Waverly Senior Housing 420 building project for the amount of $232,084.59 to be paid for by the Waverly Senior Housing. Pay request from McClure Engineering Company for the Waverly Municipal Airport Runway 29 extension. Design bidding services for the amount of $7,779. Pay request from Snyder and Associates for the 4th Street Southwest Reconstruction 2020 project for the amount of $24,055.26. Pay request from Kramer and Associates Incorporated for the Adams Parkway Bridge repairs 2019 in the amount of $231,469.83. Pay request from Kramer and Associates Incorporated for the Cedar River Parkway East Improvements 2018 in the amount of $367,352.37. Pay request from Blacktop Service Company for the 2019 Bituminous Seal Coat Program in the amount of $81,540.38. Pay request from Waverly Utilities for adding the water graph to the bill template and for Cogsdale user support for the amount of $11,089.84. Class B liquor license, hotel motel for Cobblestone Inn and Suites. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
I will second it, but I do have a real brief question on the water bill template. If we want to act on it, I can ask. It doesn't affect my approving it, it's just a curiosity question, I guess.
Nope, go right ahead.
I'm just wondering with the ease of getting that type of information through the website and that, what was the driving force behind spending $11,000 to put it on the printed bill, which they discourage you from having?
This came as a request from Waverly Utilities, their board. They had asked that we participate in adding the graphing back onto the bills themselves. And because of the movement and so much room in the bill, it takes a bit of re-engineering or re-softwaring a lot of this out to get it done. I think we may be only paying a portion of this, though. I don't know that we're paying the entire level.
My understanding is, just having come from a Waverly Utilities meeting, I think last week, I thought it was split half and half.
I believe it is. So, but no, they had asked for us to participate since they're doing our services for us in this manner. There's been a lot of public requests to get the graphing back onto that bill. And they did initially, it was looked at that it may not be necessary. Now they're seeing that as they adjust, they do want to have it back. And the first year, it would have just been a single line because there was nothing to compare it to. So now the second year, they're wanting to start to see that comparison put back, and that was the justification for putting it on.
Yeah, I guess that's probably the root of my, if it was a user request, then it makes sense. If it was something else, I just question the spend.
Yeah, I've heard that request from homeowners also.
It's becoming pretty common, and they decided to go ahead and try and engineer it back in.
Is this going to be a one-time fee or annual?
I believe it's just one time to get it reset, to get it put back on.
Do we have a second on that motion, Carl?
Yes.
Yes, Dan.
Drinkow and McKenzie.
Okay, very good, thank you. Any other council discussion? All those in favor of the consent calendar say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Consent calendar is approved. Regular business, Resolution 19-119, approving the contract with Rebecca Lawn McCarley, DBA Spark Consulting to complete a reconnaissance level survey north of the northeast residential neighborhood of Waverly. Entertain a motion.
I will move approval of Resolution 19-119, approving a contract with Rebecca Lawn McCarley, DBA Spark Consulting, to complete a reconnaissance level survey of the northeast residential neighborhood in Waverly for the not-to-exceed amount of $2,000.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Council discussion. This is an extension of the Historic Preservation Committee's.
Correct. So I'm the liaison with the Historical Preservation Society, Historical Preservation Commission, and there are currently, I believe, 4 historic districts in the city of Waverly, and this is kind of the last corner of the city. We kind of have northwest, southwest, southeast, and Main Street, and then this is kind of the last corner. They've been working towards this for a number of years. The consultant here is someone who has Waverly roots, who's done a lot of background work for them, and this is just kind of putting together the official survey to make a historical district.
I don't want this to be misunderstood as not being supportive, but what are the advantages of doing this all
Having
through
historical
Waverly?
districts.
Uh-huh.
Part of it is kind of, I would say, touristy. I mean, so people can get these walking maps of historical districts and see kind of what the different old parts of town are. I think it's supposed to kind of, again, preserve the history, but it's also to, I want to say it's to protect property values and kind of, make this kind of a feather in their cap, saying this is a nice area to live, and kind of to preserve the old houses that are there.
Does it tie our hands in terms of, modernization or reconstruction?
No, I don't believe so.
It's not the same as we've had with other projects. This is different. This just identifies the history, and there are certain things you can do, can't do, but it really brings the history out of each property. And the point of this actual request is to see if it is eligible to move forward and do the neighborhood itself. We're going to do a reconnaissance level to see how many properties would be eligible, is it enough, is it of the percentage, and that's what she's going to do for the city.
I mean, one of the things that it has to be kind of a contiguous area, and there has to be a certain percentage of historic homes within that area. So if they're too spread out, then you can't actually create a historic district. So this is kind of checking out the neighborhood and saying, can we create a neighborhood?
By contiguous, you mean?
Connected.
You don't mean it has to be connected to other historical districts?
No, I mean within itself, that you can't just have one historic house here and one historic house here.
Right. So Edie's house and my house are never going to be in an historic district, right?
Not the same one. I wouldn't think so. Not the same for a long time.
For all kinds of
Never
reasons.
say
yes.
never.
Never say never.
Well, I did have a citizen ask me, and I'll preface this by saying that I support it. I'll vote for it. The question was, how many historic districts do we actually need? And I didn't know how to answer that, except to say, I suppose until you get all the history into a district. And that's what you're after. it
I
sounds like.
believe that this is the last one that they're intending to pursue.
How old does a building have to be deemed historic?
I think it's 50 years.
It is.
Not just age, it could also be
Well, yeah, and
It's how long?
the houses, for instance, in Maple Hill, age-wise qualify, but most of us up there,
Where's Maple Hill?
where I live,
Oh,
and most of us have put vinyl siding on, and that takes it out of any consideration for historic preservation.
yeah.
Yeah. Probably when you added electricity, that did it,
Something like that. Okay, any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Kangas.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Rothy.
Yes.
Scherer.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Bergen.
Yes.
Drinkow.
Yes.
Resolution 119-119, approving the contract for historical reconnaissance in Northeast Residential is approved. Resolution 19-120, awarding the downtown alley reconstruction 2019 project and authorizing the city attorney to review and approve the performance and payment bonds. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of Resolution 19-120, awarding the downtown alley reconstruction 2019 project to Feldman Concrete of Dyersville, Iowa, for the bid amount of $27,556, and authorizing the city attorney to review and approve the performance and payment bonds.
Second.
Motion made, second. Council discussion.
I guess, the one question I have is, as I was looking at it, is this the last alley on the east side of the river?
Okay, there we go. There might be one more. I'm trying to think of what we've done, because some of them are getting kind of chopped up by utilities or tearing them up. It's not going back smooth. I'm trying to remember. Do you know, Mike, do we have another one after this on the east, or is this pretty much the final?
I've been getting some comments on the west side of the river. When are you going to finish our alleys? Because there are several there that are in really bad shape.
Yep, there's one slated to be done next spring. That's between 3rd and 4th Street on the south side. And the question is, well, why aren't you doing that one now? Because in many respects, it's worse. And that's because it's a more complex project and more costly project, and we need more time to put together, and it will exceed the formal public hearing bid threshold. So it's going to take a full set of engineered plans and specifications, and that takes more time, and then it takes a 2-month letting process to go through. So that one's been designated for an early spring project with work, hopefully beginning in April. Additionally, in order to fix many of the drainage deficiencies with that project, we're going to be doing quite a bit of work out on 3rd Street in order to get the drainage right. So there may be another alley or two on the west side, but
You got the alley between 1st Street and 2nd Street.
right. There's also been talk about development potential there. And the concern is if we go in and, expend some significant resources, that it may end up having the majority of it tore out again within potentially a couple of years. So we are mindful of other things that may be happening within that block or that neighborhood.
Okay.
This alley, is that just going to consist of, what are we going to do to fix that? I drove through it, it is rough, it does need fixing.
So this one was rebuilt, we're on round 2. This one was rebuilt, I don't know if it was about 15 years ago. And as James indicated, the utilities, after we rebuilt it, a few years later, the utilities start coming in and upgrading their services because everything is back behind, either overhead or underground. And if it was overhead, there's a good chance they're going to put it underground today. So the alley that is being proposed here was asphalt. We're going to look at rebuilding it as a concrete alley like we did just over the last 2 alley projects that we did. Now, it wasn't 6 months later that a utility company tore into the alley that we rebuilt over here. So that will happen.
Who's responsible then for the cost of fixing that?
Well, the utility company does, and we monitor that and permit it and inspect it. And the thing is the patch is never as good as the original. And so, it's going to shorten the overall life of the project.
Do we know any of the utilities' plans, into the future?
Well, we know the one has upgraded all of their services, but we don't, I don't think the others can give us any indication as to whether it's on a 5-year capital improvement plan.
We assume they'll wait about a month before they cut into it, so it's usually about the standard timeline. Somebody needs something and it just cuts in this nice, beautiful poured alley. And the one that we did last year, though, did get put back nicely. We just have to really stand on top of them to do good work to get it put back, or else it can get like the one we're about to replace, which is really bad.
Mid-American Gas has been great to work with. We meet with them annually to compare notes. We share our upcoming projects and they share their upcoming plans as well. They do have a capital improvement plan for going into communities and upgrading their infrastructure. And when they are aware of that, they share it with us and they try to give us a couple of years of notice as to what their capital improvement plan is. Others, it's Waverly Utilities is great to work with. But some of the others, they just don't know. Their resources are such that they're not sure if they're going to be doing anything a year from now or 5 years from now. And it's nothing against the staff that we're working with at those companies. It's just maybe a little bit different environment and less certainty as to what their path forward is going to be.
I'm guessing I already know the answer to this, but is it possible to reconstruct only the alley in only part of a block? Because there are going to be some very upset people in a block if we tell them, no, your alley can't be rebuilt because there might be possible construction sometime down the road.
Sure.
Is that something that you might want to consider for a future alley project, maybe after this next year's one is finished?
If you have something in mind, just let James know and we'll...
Well, I'm talking about between 1st Street and 2nd Street west on the south side of Bremer Avenue. That is, the alley is not in good shape, and I've had a number of business owners there ask me, actually they asked 2 years ago when the alley between 2nd Street and 3rd Street was completed, why theirs wasn't done first, since they have a lower street number than the other one was. And I said, well, it'll be getting to you. We can only do one, and that was deemed to be the one to do. But, if we can complete at least a part of it, I think that would be beneficial to those businesses there.
So the history of the alley reconstruction is that it's been council-driven. So it has not been a program that staff put together. It was, initiated by council. Many of the alleys that were reconstructed were done in conjunction with the development or reconstruction of a municipal parking lot because they tend to be adjacent to each other. So that's how many of them were identified and rebuilt previously, but it has been historically, council through the administration identifies what they're hearing from the public, and we look at developing it into the program.
The most recent alleys we started when we were looking at the reconstruction of Bremer Avenue as a way to help direct traffic from the back of the stores in because the front was tore up. That's why the first one was done, the second one, that's why this third one's being done. So it wasn't always the worst condition. A lot of it was how much traffic is coming in the back of the businesses as well. And so we will continue to monitor the other alleys that go forward and do them as quick as we can, but we also don't want to tear up multiple alleys at one time in case that is the route that people need to take. So we'll definitely consider the one you're talking about. Once we get the other one figured out, we have funding for approximately 3, depending on how these go, but I'm sure the next one is going to be expensive. And that's why we're kind of sitting to see, do we have the funding in place or not? How much is left? Because the one you're talking about could be equally as challenging as they are in bad shape. And so we're aware, we'll continue to monitor, and we'll put it at the top of the priority that we can, depending on what else we see around. But we're getting through them pretty quickly, and it's making a huge difference, I think, too. It's very nice to have them.
It is.
Completed,
It is.
so.
It's an excellent improvement. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other council discussion? Roll call vote, please.
McKenzie?
Yes.
Rafi?
Yes.
Scher?
Yes.
Waldstein?
Yes.
Bergen?
Yes.
Drinkow?
Yes.
Kangas?
Yes.
Resolution 19-120, Downtown Alley Reconstruction Project, approved 7-0. Resolution 19-121, approving pay application number 1, accepting the dog park sidewalk 2019 project is complete, and approving pay estimate number 2 is final pay request. Move to entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of Resolution 19-121, approving the pay application number 1 in the amount of $29,907.90, accepting the dog park sidewalk 2019 project as complete, and approving pay estimate number 2 in the amount of $1,574.10 as final pay request to Feldman Concrete of Dyersville, Iowa.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Council discussion.
I just had a question for Garrett about, I know there was some issues with the big rain that happened and washout, and did that all get resolved?
Yep, that's all been taken care of by city staff. They filled in every place that had washed out and have it seeded, and we had the dog park open again on Friday morning, this last Friday morning.
Okay, any other council discussion, comments?
Again, this was a project that was facilitated by a donation from the
Yes, sir.
public.
100% covered by donation.
Roll call vote, please.
Rafi?
Yes.
Scher?
Yes.
Waldstein?
Yes.
Bergen?
Yes.
Drinkow?
Yes.
Kangas?
Yes.
McKenzie?
Yes.
Resolution 19-121, accepting the dog park sidewalk, approved 7-0. Resolution 19-122, approving quote for the school pedestrian ramp construction 2019 project. Entertain a motion.
Approval Resolution 19-122, approving quote for the school pedestrian ramp construction 2019 project from Feldman Concrete of Dyersville, Iowa, for the quoted price of $11,756.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Council discussion.
I just want to thank the students for bringing this forward again.
Yes, it was student initiated. So it's definitely a plus.
So I remember when we had the Safe Streets walking audit of the community, one of the things that was pointed out was this could be a place where instead of having ramps, you could put a raised crosswalk in to basically create almost the equivalent of a slow speed bump at this location. It was an interesting conversation when it came up in the walking audit. I'm wondering if this was ever part of the consideration for the design of this project.
Yes, and it would have driven the costs up substantially because you would have been rebuilding a section of the roadway. In addition to that, when you do the speed table or the raised elevated crosswalk, extends all the way through the gutter section, which is your drainage. So you're going to trap water on the high side, and you have to have accommodations for that. So I understand, and in certain locations, they may be very appropriate, but coming in and trying to do it after the fact in this location was not viable.
Okay, so just, it was considered and it was deemed not appropriate.
It was, I mean, anything can be done for as long as you can fund it.
Sure.
But it was going to be very, very costly and probably not worth the cost.
So is it fair to say that Cary and Southeast schools do not have similar needs for these
I think
kinds of?
that's correct.
Yep.
When they came and presented, high school was obviously the main one they wanted to have addressed, but then they also mentioned West Cedar, which is being addressed, but there was no mention of the others. And if you go and look around the area, they do not have the same issues with a crosswalk started on one side but not on the other. So they seem to be more complete, and we did not see the issue anywhere else.
Any other questions? Comments? Roll call vote, please.
Sherrill.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Bergen.
Yes.
Drinkow.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Rafi.
Yes.
Resolution 19-122, approving the quote for the school pedestrian ramp construction approved 7-0. Resolution 19-123, approving the creation of a ball diamond task force. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of Resolution 19-123, approving the creation of a ball diamond task force.
Second.
Motion made and second. Council discussion.
I have a question about the language in the resolution. It seems to me that the third whereas sounds like it's redundant. Is that possible? You have all that information in the second whereas? Or am I not reading it correctly?
I agree.
Can we get rid of that third whereas and clean up the resolution that way?
Just make a motion to amend.
If it needs to be a motion to amend, I'll move to do that.
I'll second the amendment.
Any discussion on the amendment? Can we do that with a voice vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
We're let me make sure I understand. We're removing the third whereas.
Correct.
Yep.
Saying it's redundant.
Yeah.
All those in favor of the amendment, removing the third whereas paragraph, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed?
I'm sorry.
Third paragraph is removed.
I guess I have a question about the role of Garrett in this. Since he's not one of the 7-member task force people, I'm wondering if he shouldn't be either named as an ex officio member or a city liaison or give some kind of structure to what Garrett's role is on this.
Garrett's role initially as a presiding officer until the group can elect a chairman of their own group.
Is he still part of the group after he's no longer the temporary presiding officer?
That's the intent.
Yeah, Garrett or myself or both will be at each meeting and make sure that we stay on task and we continue to move forward.
Okay, I think I would feel more comfortable if that were part of the resolution, so that we, as a council, authorized the Leisure Services Director and the City Administrator to attend and participate in the meetings.
Okay, if that's council's wish, we certainly will do that.
Can
Can we just amend it?
amend it with another, with a whereas.
I'm trying to recall.
What did you ask him?
How is our code written for committees to include, because all of our committees have a staff liaison and then a council liaison also.
Correct.
So is that,
Temporary task.
This is a temporary
So I
task
just-
force.
yeah, it was just how it's worded and how does that
Get out like big.
overlap one or the other?
So, doesn't really address the staff liaisons. It does address the council liaisons. I just read the code today, and actually, the code requires 3 council liaisons. And James and I'm working on kind of some code revisions and cleaning it up. And James and I settled on the words of up to 3, because it doesn't really seem possible to
each
have
commission?
3. Each committee.
Oh, committee.
Committee.
Yes.
Is that
temporary committees.
different than a task force, or the same as
It's the same.
Okay. So
However,
up to
each
3.
committee has to report to council and is an open meeting and all that, just the same as a
Yeah.
commission.
Right.
Yeah, all it says here, I'm reading again from section 2.10, temporary advisory committees. I assume that this hasn't been amended since the last time I printed this out, unlike the zoning code.
No, it's
So,
fine.
okay, good. Special ad hoc citizen advisory committees and study committees, hereafter referred to as temporary committees, may be created by the mayor for a particular purpose. Committee members and a temporary presiding officer shall be appointed by the mayor with the advice and consent of the council. The presiding officer shall appoint the chairperson of the temporary committee. All such temporary committees shall sunset. No later than the end of each calendar year unless specifically continued. One council member and one alternate council member may, and that's in italics, may be appointed as a member and liaison of a temporary committee. So I think that it doesn't say anything about city staff being able to participate in that, and I would like to give them the authority to attend and participate in these meetings, even though they may not have a vote.
It is open meeting, so,
I'm sorry?
it is an open meeting, so anybody can attend.
Right, but I think Rod might be talking about, and I would agree with this, that we formalize city staff participation as part of this task force.
And normally, city staff doesn't participate in, I mean, they're attending, but they normally don't participate as the public in a public meeting.
So do you want to add that in the paragraph of the second whereas? Like when, after it says that Garrett will be the temporary presiding officer, we can specify that once the committee chooses a presiding officer, then Garrett will remain an active discussant,
I'd say then.
or something like that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the wording here. Whereas the Leisure Services Director and the City Administrator shall be
Forced to attend.
Well, how about just using staff liaisons to the task
Yeah,
force?
shall be staff
Just add it to the sentence.
Designated by city administrator.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Do you have that, Carla?
Sure.
Fill in the blank.
She says come.
No, we'll make sure in that language that's going to designate staff liaison as well.
For the public, or viewing public, before you vote, the task force members that have agreed to serve are Jeremy Langer, Josh Peterson, Tina Miller, Charlie Heyer, Jennifer Nuss, Kevin Miller, and Chuck Britton, and Ann has agreed to be the council liaison.
Would there be any merit in including in this resolution some kind of a expected or hoped for final date for a report or whatever, so we don't have it floating along open-endedly?
Sounds like it sunsets, did you say, Rod, at the end of the calendar year?
Or the sunset at the end of the calendar year, but I
Less
think what
extended.
Mike's talking about is a reporting date, where we set a reporting date, and I was thinking the same thing, Mike, that maybe the first council meeting in November, which would be about a little over 3 months,
Yeah.
that they provide a report. It may not be a final report, but at least an interim report, if not a final report, so that we make sure that something is actually moving and we get an update on where they're at.
I think you will find updates coming sooner than that
Okay.
on a voluntary basis.
Well,
I was in the same kind of thought that we want to get this moving and we're coming up on a potential new set of council members coming in 6 months, so there's, additional turnover that, has been expressed by others that this has been a project that's been in the works for 15, 17, however many years, that the quicker the better, and some sense of urgency in terms of how quickly we would like to have
Garrett's prepared tomorrow or the next day, I think, to send out a feeler for when best meeting times and everything are at, as soon as I provide him the list of email addresses. So.
Correct. Yep.
I think, it probably doesn't hurt to set a date, but I think when we talked about this before, we kind of struggled with what date. If it's just reporting back, that's one thing, but the other dates we don't know enough about in terms of the work that needs to be done to say it has to be done by, the whole project final report has to be done by a certain date. I guess I feel comfortable just saying that I feel a sense of urgency about this, that we need to be moving along as quickly as possible, whatever that is, but as quickly as possible.
Mike, about how long would we expect the soil borings to come back in?
It's in 2 to 3 weeks.
Just a couple weeks?
Yeah, I think we'll certainly have some preliminary information. Whether or not we get the full-blown report back, we should be able to get some indication as usable information, hopefully within a few weeks.
So if I don't know what's on the calendar long-term, but something, if Rod's saying 3 months, what about the October study session as opposed to putting it on a regular meeting, putting it into a study session calendar?
Whatever council prefers, we can certainly do.
Yeah, because it wouldn't require any action, on our part.
Initially, we'd hear the report.
Right.
It's a full update.
Be considering.
And I assume we'll provide monthly updates as we progress through this, regardless to you, whether email, et cetera. But if you want a full-blown update by end of October, I think that can be accomplished.
I think there's another thing here too. If we actually have an update in a public forum, it allows the public to hear how far they've come. And I think that's an excellent idea, the October study session date. So I would move that we add, this would be whereas number 3, I guess, or it could be the last whereas. No, let's do whereas number 3. So we're substituting this for the one that we just took out. Whereas the task force shall provide a progress report to the council at the council study session in October 2019.
Okay, are we gonna have a bundle and add your previous, is that?
We already voted on that, I think.
No, we didn't.
Oh, we didn't?
There was no voice.
I didn't have
voice
that.
Not even on the amendment?
There was on the
Not
first
on the
amendment to
first
strike the
amendment we
third.
did, but I didn't on the second.
Adding the
So we have 3 amendments in play. 2 in play, but,
Right,
so do you want to bundle the 2 amendments, Rod?
the last 2.
Yeah.
Together, put both together, sure. Move it along. So I will, since I'm the one who said both of them, we'll have both of I move both of those amendments
That's fair.
to the resolution.
And again, just for summary for us and for the citizens listening, both are the October study session report from this task force with that date identified and that meeting, and the other is to have, to identify the Director of Leisure Services as the staff liaison, correct? Is that correct?
Or I think such person is appointed by the city administrator.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay. You had a motion? That was your motion?
That's my motion.
Okay. Second to the amendment?
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded on an amendment to add a whereas back into the resolution. All those in favor say yes?
Yes.
Opposed? Okay, now, we're back to approving Resolution 19-123. Is there any further discussion?
Preface this by apologizing that I wasn't here at the last meeting, nor have I had time to go back and listen to the discussion there, so I certainly don't want to force us into a rediscussion. But I'm glad to see this isn't necessarily going all the way back to decide if we really need ball diamonds in town. So I think it's good to see that we've accepted that. The only thing that I have a little bit of a concern of, and again, I preface this with not having gone back and listened to discussion, is how are we keeping this tied to the adult program for softball? Again, there may be opportunities to put them all three in one spot. I hope we don't lose an opportunity to have a park-like atmosphere that Champions Ridge would have provided, maybe at a different location. So I would just encourage this group to keep the adult program in mind as they look at things.
Okay. Any further comments? Roll call vote, please.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Bergen.
Yes.
Drinkow.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Rafi.
Yes.
Scherer.
Yes.
Resolution 19-123, approving the creation of a Ball Diamond Task Force, approved 7-0.
Mr. Mayor, before we move on, just a question about that resolution. Are the folks who have been appointed all agreeable to serve?
Yes, they've all been contacted,
Thank you.
and they're ready to roll.
Okay.
Sooner the better.
Staff is too now.
No.
Yeah, right.
We're ready to roll.
No, as soon as the names were submitted to me, I contacted each one, and ready to go. They're excited, and I think you'll see some results coming very soon. Resolution 19-124, approving the quote for soil borings at the city's proposed youth ball field location. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of Resolution 19-124, approving the quote for soil borings at the city's proposed youth ball field location from ATC Group Services LLC of Waterloo, Iowa, for the quoted price of $2,650.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Council discussion.
I would like to amend that resolution and substitute the word possible for proposed, so it reads soil borings at the city's possible youth ball field location.
I'll second that.
Discussion on changing the language. Motion made and seconded.
Are you amending the motion or the resolution?
I'm amending the
Resolution.
I'm amending the motion.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear.
I don't think the resolution states the word proposed.
Yes, it
Yes, it does.
resolution does have proposed.
Yeah, it's in
Okay.
the top.
Yep.
Okay.
Then I would amend, then I'm amending the resolution.
No, the resolution already has proposed.
He wants
It's
possible.
Possible.
You want to
Oh,
see
I see what
I
you're
want to change
saying.
it to possible rather
Possible.
than proposed.
But since we already have a motion, can you,
So you're amending that.
you'd amend the
It's just like amending the whereases, the sun's
All
just
right.
amending the therefore.
Yeah, I don't see that in the resolution.
Any discussion on,
First
Sentence.
Oh, I'll wait at the bottom. Okay.
It's both the title and the
And
therefore.
any discussion on changing the language from proposed to possible?
What's your impetus to change it?
I think proposed sounds like it's, we're directing a finding that that is the place where we want to have the ball diamonds, and that we're simply having soil borings done to confirm that it's a place where that can be done. I think possible says that there are other locations, excuse me, other locations where the ball diamonds might be located, and this is just one of them that we're gathering additional information on.
What are the other locations?
You have to ask the task force.
The charge to the task force
Is to
actually
find it.
says to explore other locations. So
Yeah.
I do think it sounds like there's a presupposition or something, or a directive.
It's one of the charges of the
Yeah.
task force, yes.
And I do want to go on record saying that I think one of the other locations is at the Champions Ridge location.
And the reason it was put on as proposed is when this site was initially purchased, that was the thought at the time. That's why it was
Yeah.
placed that way. It was not to imply any indication of anything else
Right.
other than that.
But I think Brad's proposed amendment makes that clear. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Clearly you have my attorney's word crafting hat on tonight. I
Yeah.
apologize for
Yeah,
that.
you're going for a record in amendments in one meeting.
All those in favor of the amendment to change the wording from proposed to
I don't have
possible?
a second on that.
Oh,
Who'll all
I
second?
thought I did have. Oh. Say yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Amendment changing the language is approved. Now, any other discussion on the resolution 19-124?
Again, I just like to thank Rod for keeping Champions Ridge current location as one of the possibilities. Again, we struggle with its funding. Again, this is my position. I still feel it's a very valid location for a multi-generational ballpark, so.
Yeah, I'll second that. I think it's important to include the possibility that Champions Ridge can be on the table. Some of the discussions that we've been seeing in the local press suggest that we should be sensitive to that, I think. So that's a good comment.
I think to play the devil's advocate, it does give a bit of a mixed message, however, but I have no opposition to the wording change.
Well, it's one of the charges of the task force to determine location.
Yeah.
In fact, the number two charge.
And we're talking about the location, we're not necessarily talking about the project as it was originally designed, perhaps yes, perhaps no. Certainly talking, I think, about a different
design, perhaps.
Yeah, and financial plan, perhaps. So, I mean, I think when we say location, when you say Champions Ridge, or you say Champions Ridge, that's shorthand, I'm assuming in this context for that property, not necessarily for the project as we've understood it in the
That's
past.
correct.
Yeah.
I think we need to clarify that. I think it gets very confusing.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Bergen.
Yes.
Drinkow.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Rafi.
Yes.
Scher.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Resolution 19-124, approving soil borings at a possible youth ball field location is hereby approved. Resolution 19-125, approving the Federal Aviation Administration grant agreement for federal assistance for the acquisition and administrative costs to date for the Airport Safety Zone project at the Waverly Municipal Airport. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of Resolution 19-125 as read by the mayor.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Council discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Kangas.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Rafi.
Yes.
Scher.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Bergen.
Yes.
Drinkow.
Yes.
Resolution 19-125, approving Federal Aviation Administration agreements is hereby approved 7-0. Resolution 19-126, approving the Federal Aviation Administration grant agreement for federal assistance for the acquisition and administrative costs to date for the Airport Safety Zone project at the Waverly Municipal Airport. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of Resolution 19-126 as read by the mayor.
Second.
Motion made, second. Council discussion.
Now, on the agenda, they're actually written slightly differently. One is acquisition and administration, the other is for the construction portion.
Right. One is for the land property acquisition, one is for the actual building of the runways, my understanding.
But in 126, they're different.
Right, well, that's in the
In the heading.
in the heading, they're the same, but in the reading, they're
Right.
different, so.
Right.
That's the difference. I think it just got copied.
So 126 is for the construction portion reimbursement. 125 was for the acquisition of property.
Right, but
Let me-
under 126, it says acquisition.
Let me restate, let me restate my motion, so we have this right. I just noticed that here too. I'll move approval of Resolution 19-126, approving the Federal Aviation Administration grant agreement for federal assistance for the construction portion of the airport runway 29 extension 2018 project at the Waverly Municipal Airport.
Still second that.
You still second?
I'll still second that, okay.
I have motion and a second for Resolution 19-126. Any further council discussion? Roll call vote, please.
McKenzie?
Yes.
Rafi?
Yes.
Sher?
Yes.
Waldstein?
Yes.
Bergen?
Yes.
Drinkow?
Yes.
Kangas?
Yes.
Resolution 19-126, approving grant agreement for federal assistance for the airport is hereby approved, 7-0. Staff comments.
Do we have
Boards and
items
commissions.
9 to take care of?
Oops.
I hope so.
Boards and commissions.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, it's not,
What is that?
Canceling
yeah,
the
it's
study
not,
session.
it's not on my,
Number 9, yes.
I would approve the cancellation of the July 22nd, 2019 study session.
You're approving it or you're moving it?
I'm moving it.
I'm
I'm moving
sorry.
to approve.
I'll entertain a motion to cancel the
Don't rush,
July
man, let him speak over there.
22nd, 2019 study
Sort this
session.
out.
It's been a busy month.
I'll second.
Any council discussion? Those in favor of canceling the July 22nd, 2019 study session, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed?
James doesn't get a vote.
Okay. Yeah, I'm missing a whole page here.
Oh, you've got boards.
Reports from boards and commissions. Planning and Zoning Commission minutes, February 7th, 2019. Received into record. Historic Preservation Commission minutes, March 25th, 2019. Received into record. Economic Development Commission minutes, April 9th, 2019. Received into record. Airport Commission minutes, May 19th, 2019, as corrected from previously approved. Received into record. Waverly Senior Calendar for July 2019, received into record. Now, we're up to staff comments.
Since there's none over there, as we had talked, I would like to introduce Isaac, who we had to kind of bring up to speed much quicker than we were anticipating tonight. But he joined us almost exactly a week ago today. So he's kind of up to speed already, as you can see with what's going on.
Where do you come from,
Planning
Isaac?
zoning.
I served the last 3 years as the city planner for the city of Atumwa.
Welcome.
Absolutely. We're glad he's here. He's jumping in head first and quickly gaining speed. So I'm very pleased he's here.
Or didn't you tell me you purchased a house and
I did, we closed on a Friday, so.
it was on
Great.
Friday, so that'd be.
I'm impressed you already have the zoning code memorized.
That's what I'm saying.
You've met your match.
Yeah.
Any other staff comments?
No, sir.
City council comments?
I just want to remind everybody that Heritage Days is coming up this weekend. I'm the council liaison, so we still need volunteers, so if you want to sell beer tickets with me, come on down. But I have my program, it all starts Thursday night, hydrate, because it's going to be hot.
No, you wanted the 5.
Well, I don't want people collapsing from dehydration, so.
I think, James, you kind of alluded to the Third Street Bridge and the designation it has. Has there been any progress there? Or?
We've not talked about it recently. I can certainly get back to you once I converse with Bill about it. I know we're working through it, the process to getting it delisted, but I'm not
So
sure where we're at.
I can speak to that, being on the Historic Preservation Commission.
Thank you, Bill. If he was here, I know he would say this.
So it turns out that the confusion regarding being delisting is there is paperwork that needs to be filed regardless of whether it's a historic or not historic by virtue of being kind of on the waterway. It needs to go through like city and like Corps of Engineers. So the information that we were given isn't that being on the historic registry does not slow down the process at all. That there is no process for having to be delisted that we need to go through to like tear it down and rebuild it. The slowdown that we had like been told, oh, now you need to fill this paperwork out, that was present anyway. So whether it's on the historic registry or not on the historic registry, we would have had to go through that process because of kind of the Corps of Engineers. So we were misinformed that being on the historic registry was somehow going to slow the process up.
So the paperwork we have to fill out for the Army Corps of Engineers does what?
Anytime that you're like tearing down an existing bridge, you have to kind of go through, like, it's on a waterway, we need to kind of file paperwork there.
To get permission to
get permission to do that. And because it's an old building, I mean, it's because it's an existing structure.
So it didn't get to the point in previous council discussions where they ever filled out that paperwork? Is that correct? Okay.
And they want to make sure that you're not disturbing a natural habitat that needs to be replenished somewhere else. All that kind of goes through regardless of what you do. So I think it's appropriate that we were misled the first time it wasn't going to be a problem, then we were misled the second time that it was going to be a problem.
Yeah, so how do we know that this is accurate?
We're going to keep going forward hoping, because honestly, you can't get a good answer at times depending who you're talking to. So I do believe we're on the right path. I will again confirm with Bill and get more detail if needed, but I think Brian has represented it accurately.
I mean, I believe there's some question that they will want to know what our plans are regarding the structure.
Yeah.
So, but we've already done the due diligence that we know the cost of kind of refurbishing it and bringing it up to code as is untenable. The idea of kind of just leaving it as a one-lane bridge and preserving the historic nature of that. Because we've done our due diligence and kind of we looked at the prices and saying, no, it's not financially viable, that's the amount that they expect us to do. I mean, we've done that, so when we go back and saying we're not going to renovate it because we've already looked those prices, that's what kind of we need to kind of come forth with.
So then we are not going to continue with the delisting? Is that, but we took action on that, so do we need to take another action?
The delisting happens automatically when the structure is removed.
Oh, okay.
So we do not need to delist it because once the structure is gone, it will automatically be delisted.
That's a good end to a question that would keep us from putting it on the agenda as an actual topic, because we're getting pretty far down the road as to discussing it openly where we'd probably need to have it on.
Yeah.
We're continuing the process, the same forms you list it with is the same form you delist it with. It's a different box. I mean, it's a real weird way they're going to do it. So if we want to discuss it further, we can certainly have it on the agenda going forward.
I don't know if we need it on, personally, that's just my opinion, if we need it on the agenda, but I do think we need updates on it periodically. A lot of citizens ask. I think there are at least some of us, myself included, who are very interested in moving forward with something on 3rd Street. Others may have a different opinion, and that is for discussion, but I think we need an update about where we are with, and we did talk about it during budget time. I think that's important for citizens to know too in terms of a longer range planning of budget. So there are many people who think we're not thinking or talking about this at all, and that's not accurate. So I think just kind of regular updates would be helpful.
Yep, I'll make sure we have an update for you
That was the reason for my question. I think it should be a topic for budgeting this fall into the first of the year, so we just need to
Absolutely.
make sure.
I would certainly
able to
hope
talk
we
to
can
them.
get a bridge before we got to tear down the Bremer Avenue Bridge. That would be so much more helpful.
That's kind of the basis of why we started the
Yep.
discussion of it in the first place.
And a lot of people don't know that we've, already talked about that,
They
at
should
least
pay
this
attention.
council. Yeah. Well, I mean,
the first time we've
there's
talked about
Saturday
it.
budget sessions when we've talked about them, so.
Do we know how long it takes for the Army Corps to get back to you?
Again, we'll try and update you as much as we can when we get to that point. I don't know off the top of my head. I know Bill, Brian working through this, so we'll get you something very soon.
They've got a good sense of how long it's going to take, and I think that they're going to be generous in providing the amount of time necessary to go through the process. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I would actually like to mention that this, on Tuesday, July 2nd, I had kind of a little forum discussing fireworks down at the Waverly Area Veterans Post. I think it was a very productive conversation. I talked to a number of people. There were a few who were actually there to talk to me. Most were just there because they were hungry. I would say that I can report that there was no consensus in terms of all people feeling one way. I felt that there were probably half of the group. Well, I'll be honest, there was one table that was filled with all the guys, and they said, leave it as it is. And then there was another table that was filled with all the wives, and they kind of said, we could probably shrink it, no one would mind. But I would probably say it was about 50-50 between leaving it as is and shrinking it to a kind of a 2-day window. There were a number of people who were definitely outspoken towards restricting or banning it. People speaking about litter on their yard, people talking about the loud noises. I had one person who was talking about problems with the PTSD, and I think that was a very valuable conversation. I do want to apologize that I felt like I was giving out misinformation. I was telling people that there was some sort of aspect to the ordinance that restricted distance between houses, but then I went back and I don't believe there's anything in the ordinance saying how close it can be to an existing building. So long as it's on your property, you could set it up right next to someone's window, which I think may be a little problematic, but I think I just wanted to come clean about my misinterpretation and misinformation on that. I would like to request that we reconsider discussing the ordinance. I don't know if we want to add it to a study session or reintroduce the ordinance. I know I was one of the people who voted on the winning side, but I would definitely like to bring that back and have another discussion on that.
Yeah, I would like to piggyback on what Brian just said. I have had some citizens come to me. I didn't ask for this. They came to me, and they all had the same concern. And their concern was that they are pet owners, and they said that their dogs just about went crazy this year because of the length. They said they could probably live with a couple of days. And some were men and some were women. So I think it's only fair to put that into the conversation for the future.
There was a Facebook post that one lady's dog actually had a grand mal seizure because of the fireworks and died. But there were a lot. Someone got called for an outright ban. Again, shortened time. I think the chief, I saw a comment that calls to the police department this year were about half of what they were a year ago. And so it's... It is definitely a topic for further discussion again.
Well, and kind of now that the fireworks season is over, now is kind of a good time to talk about it, I think. So, and I mean, I know last time we wanted to wait until after the New Year's Eve so we can experience that, but I don't think that's necessary this time around. So, and I'd also like to say that I will be at the beach house after the meeting if anyone would like to share beer and discuss current topics.
Okay.
Just going to ask Garrett if you know, or Ann if you know, thoughts for the fireworks being shot off from the track. I know previously there have been a lot of people that have gone up to the parking lot or to the country club and the golf course and kind of sat around the 18th green and the 9th green there and watched out over that way. Is there going to be seating allowed up there this year, or how is that as far as
You mean Saturday night for Heritage
for
Days?
Heritage Days?
I'll let Garrett start.
With the changes where they're setting them off this year, I guess I haven't really heard any discussion as to if we are going to have people sit on the golf course or not. I can find that out for you right away, but unfortunately, that's not going to get out to the public, soon enough.
Just to curiosity, because
Sure.
people parked up there and
Tradition.
sat there traditionally, and if you go sit up there this year, they're not going to see it because the building will be in the way. But
Right.
we'll have to go to the other, but the first tee, I mean, I know I've been one that's sat up there in the past and have tried to keep people off the greens at least so that they're not
Right.
on the prepared areas as much.
And I don't know details about the production, but I do know the people who are doing the fireworks are the same people that did the Oktoberfest fireworks off the bridge, rail trail bridge. And so I think some of the fireworks are designed to be seen lower, but, with a mixture. But I think the main idea was for people down in the fairgrounds area to see them, but we could ask.
Yeah, I'll check in with Heritage Days tomorrow.
And then a reminder of the fly-in breakfast on Sunday morning out at the airport for the Lions Club pancake breakfast, but then they'll also be offering plane rides as well for people.
Yeah, I think they're hoping for a more presence of people to fly in. It's a rest stop on the way to a big air show up in Oshkosh that's this weekend, I'm pretty sure. So.
Kim, but seeing how we canceled the study session, this will be your last meeting. Do you have any comments or things that you'd like to say?
I've enjoyed immensely watching you guys work. I got to say, I think that you have a very good council. I'm impressed with all of you people and the staff. And I've immensely enjoyed. I hope that the other people that you get to come to these things have half as much enjoyment as I had, and learned as much as I have. It's been a real blessing to me. It really, really has. So thank you for allowing me to sit in with you guys.
Very good. Thank you.
Too bad he doesn't live in Ward 4, Mike. He might have your next.
My antenna are out. No, I would add that, I'm always impressed when we have a guest council person who speaks up and says intelligent things like you also have done. And I hope that that continues to happen because it makes the guest council's role, council person's role, a little more meaningful.
Thank you.
Very good. I only have a comment. I'd like to ask Mike, what's the status of finishing up 20th Street out by Eisenach? That hadn't been touched since it opened up late last year.
Yep, so everything is done with the exception of on the east side, north of the railroad tracks to Knight Avenue, and that's where the water main needs to be installed and bored underneath the railroad tracks. So this past week, everything had been restored last fall, with the exception of that one area. So this year, we went in last week and we got everything kind of knocked down. It's now up to the adjacent property owners to maintain that vegetation, and so we'll be reaching out and explaining that to them. As far as installation of the water main, it's in the hands of the railroad company right now. So we, for past 9 months, we've been trying to get approval to install the water main and bore underneath the tracks. And so that is the hang up right now and continues to be.
And we paid them.
So we could put a sidewalk.
So we can, right, yeah.
That's the way it works. We pay them to go in and rebuild the tracks in order for us to be able to put the roadway in across. And between the DOT and the city, we are paying for the signals and crossing gates. And I think some of that is fair. We are creating the traffic and growth that necessitates those improvements and safety enhancements. Now, I got even less favorable news here. We asked about their schedule for installing the gates and signals, and scheduling-wise, they're indicating it may not happen until next year. So, again, we wait.
But that may be, no, I would think the water main would want to be installed before those signals and gates went in, though.
That's right. We have been, when I say we, our consultant that we hired has been extremely responsive to any request for information or clarification on the plans that the railroad company has requested. And, within a day, they've turned those documents around when possible. And again, here we sit, here we wait for their final approval to get that work scheduled.
Okay, very good, thank you. I just know that it's not only unsightly, but it seems like there should be some progress, but I understand the wheels of the trains move really, really slow.
We knew this going in, and I'm trying to think who sat in on the consultant selection. One of the things that we talked about as being most important when identifying the consultant that we wanted to work on this was, we knew that the railroad was at the top of that list. What is your experience and relationship with this railroad, and what can you bring to the table that will help make this as smooth as possible? And I think they're doing a commendable job on trying to do it, but these are the challenges that we run into. This is one of the reasons why we packaged Fifth Avenue with 20th Street, is to get it done, deal with the railroad at one time on a joint project.
And we paid $10,000 each time to do that.
I just have a question about Cedar Lane. So when construction starts, will there be any traffic allowed through there, or just local residents?
Local.
Okay.
And I caution anyone who thinks that they're going to be able to sneak through from one end to the other, because you will be able to drive around the barricades, because we have to have access for those people that live along there. What you may run into is that you're able to go in at one end, but not able to exit the other end. And so you may end up getting all the way down to the other end, only to find out you can't exit that way, and you have to turn around and go all the way back. So, don't do it. And we are going to be working very closely with the adjacent property owners so that they are kept informed as to which end of the project to use throughout the week or throughout the day, because it may change partway through the day even, depending on how the work is progressing. So that project will start next week. We just had a neighborhood pre-construction meeting before the council meeting, and so things are beginning to be set in motion here.
So when you say that there should be no through traffic, is that vehicular traffic, or does that also include bicycles or pedestrians? Because I know there's lots of people who like to run along that road.
Yep.
Will they still have the option for running along that road during the construction?
Well, I would say don't even attempt it during the workday.
Okay.
Because you present one more safety issue for the construction workers. We're still going to have our hands full working with the adjacent property owners. As with any construction project that is working through a developed part of town, we go in and do a street reconstruction project in the evening. The people come out and they walk through the construction site and on the unfinished road, and that happens. That's fine. We don't leave trenches open. If we do, we put safety fence around them. So it is, in that respect, relatively safe. Our biggest concern is once the paving operations start. We don't need footprints or bicycle wheel tracks in fresh concrete. So that's when things will really probably get strict on enforcement and really try to shut it down to that type of traffic and put up additional signage when those types of things are going on.
Okay, any other comments, questions?
Just a really quick question for Mike. Have you ordered the ribbon yet so that we can cut it and open the Cedar Valley Parkway?
Well, we're trying to find the scissors first, because that would determine how wide the ribbon is. If we can find some big,
Cheers.
yeah, we'll. That's the change. Right, so we're doing some searching on some scissors first. So if you got something for us to take a look at.
Are you going to put up some signage along Cedar Lane for the geese too, so that they stay off of the pavement?
No comment, apparently.
Yeah.
Mike, Tim sits over here and says we already have a shearer.
He should cut the
I'd be glad to do that.
In regards to the Cedar River Parkway, I know people are very anxious. The updates have been given out. Keep talking about we're getting close. Grand opening in August. We're still too far out to pin down what day. Please give me until August 5. I can tell you it's not going to be open before August 5. So at that council meeting on August 5, we'll have that discussion. We'll have some, I think, the information that you're looking for at that time.
Very good, thank you. And now I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor of adjournment, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.